Syalom dan selamat datang kembali di kanal Manuskrip Papua. Video ini merupakan aksi protes terhadap Inggris atas investasi korporasi besarnya yang secara spesifik disebut dalam video ini, yaitu BP atau British Petroleum yang dituding beroperasi di Papua. Papua Barat adalah wilayah yang kaya akan sumber daya alam, namun juga menyimpan konflik politik yang panjang. Di tengah isu separatisme, ada raksasa energi asal Inggris, British Petroleum, yang menanamkan investasi triliunan rupiah. British Petroleum adalah salah satu perusahaan energi super mayor global dan merupakan investor asing terbesar asal Inggris di Indonesia. Apa jadinya jika tensi politik antara Jakarta dan London memanas dan ancaman itu langsung menyasar proyek vital British Petroleum di Teluk Bintuni? Inilah kisah di balik protes keras Indonesia terhadap Inggris dan dampaknya pada investasi energi terbesar di Papua. Tensi diplomatik antara Indonesia dan Inggris sempat memuncak. Ini bukan soal minyak, melainkan soal integritas wilayah. Pangkal masalahnya adalah kehadiran tokoh-tokoh separatis Papua di Inggris. Pada tahun 2013 misalnya, pemerintah Indonesia melayangkan nota protes keras kepada pemerintah Inggris menyusul dibukanya kantor Free West Papua di kota Oxford. Protes ini ditegaskan kembali ketika tokoh separatis Papua, Benny Wenda, menerima penghargaan Freedom of the City Award dari Dewan Kota Oxford. Jakarta menilai tindakan ini tidak sejalan dengan hubungan persahabatan kedua negara, serta bertentangan dengan pandangan internasional yang mengakui kedaulatan NKRI. Lantas, apa hubungannya dengan British Petroleum, raksasa energi asal Inggris? Hubungannya sangat sentral. British Petroleum, yang dikenal sebagai salah satu perusahaan energi super mayor global, adalah representasi ekonomi terpenting Inggris di Indonesia. British Petroleum merupakan investor asing terbesar asal Inggris dan menjadi operator utama proyek Tangguh LNG di Teluk Bintuni, Papua Barat. Proyek ini bukan hanya vital bagi ekspor gas alam Indonesia, tetapi juga menjadi aset global British Petroleum dengan investasi bernilai miliaran dolar. Ketika tensi diplomatik memanas terkait dukungan Inggris terhadap tokoh separatis, investasi besar British Petroleum, termasuk pembangunan kilang LNG Train 3, secara langsung terancam dan sempat memanas, namun hal ini hanya jadi konsumsi pribadi para konglomerat yang punya kepentingan di Papua. Beberapa pihak bahkan menyarankan agar pemerintah Indonesia bersikap tegas dan siap menanggung kerugian finansial demi menjaga harga diri bangsa dengan memutuskan kontrak British Petroleum. Di sisi lain, British Petroleum juga berada di bawah sorotan tajam terkait isu hak asasi manusia dan dampak sosial di wilayah operasinya. Keterlibatan British Petroleum di Papua Barat menjadikannya titik persimpangan antara politik kedaulatan, kepentingan ekonomi Inggris, dan isu kemanusiaan. Menanggapi protes Indonesia, pemerintah Inggris melalui kedubesnya di Jakarta menegaskan kembali sikapnya yang tidak mendukung kemerdekaan Papua. Mereka juga menyatakan bahwa keputusan Dewan Kota Oxford tidak memengaruhi kebijakan politik luar negeri Inggris dan memastikan bahwa perusahaan seperti British Petroleum tetap aman beroperasi. Namun, tekanan internasional terus berlanjut. Kelompok Parlemen Internasional untuk Papua Barat (IPWP) di London mengeluarkan deklarasi yang menyerukan pengawasan internasional dan penentuan nasib sendiri bagi rakyat Papua Barat. Pada akhirnya, kasus British Petroleum dan Papua Barat ini adalah gambaran kompleks dari persimpangan antara politik kedaulatan, hak asasi manusia, dan kepentingan ekonomi global. Menurut Anda, bagaimana seharusnya pemerintah Indonesia menyikapi investasi asing sebesar British Petroleum di tengah isu sensitif seperti ini? Sampaikan pendapat Anda di kolom komentar. Jangan lupa komentarnya harus positif dan jangan gunakan emoji tanda love, bendera, emoji senyum, dan sebagainya. Salam hangat dari channel YouTube Manuskrip Papua.
Benny Wenda came to speak at that conference, and we were very struck when he made the point. He says, when I'm in London and I look up at the buildings, I see mountains. I see the mountains of West Papua. When I'm in London and I look at the streets, I see the rivers of West Papua, and that wasn't just Benny being poetic, which of course he is when he speaks, but he was making a very powerful political point. The profits that are extracted from West Papua are in London, and they're in London, and they're siphoned into London in very hidden ways, and ways in which we then took a commitment to try and expose precisely how that's the case, and I'm going to detail some of these. I do want to say, before I get into just naming some names, that we also recognise that the form of repression in West Papua is industrial, and I think that's very important. The form of repression arises directly from the form of capitalist exploitation, capitalist development that's going on in West Papua, and we have to name that form of repression as industrial. Conflicts are most intense where people are being thrown off their land for corporate development, or where food sources and water sources are being destroyed for profit, and so on. And I think there are people here that understand this a lot better than me, but the form of racism experienced by the Papuan people is a form of industrial racism, and it's directly related to the form of capitalist industrial development, whether that's the policy of transmigration, destruction of traditional ways of living, the replacement of traditional foods, and so on. A very violent racialization is necessary also to legitimise the extreme violence that I'm sure we'll hear about from other speakers. I just want to talk briefly and name some names that are in the report. The other thing I want to say is I've got a lot of copies of the report with me that I hope people here will ask me for. As many as you think you can give away, so we can distribute this. But we also wrote the report because we want things like this to happen. We don't just want to name names, we want to name names in a way that we can be present at the locations where that value, that profit is being extracted directly out of West Papua, and of course BP is one of the most important. We identified, I'm going to talk about agriculture very briefly, we identified 14 major British investors in West Papuan palm oil plantations, including Prudential, HSBC, Legal & General, and Aberdeen, the big investment company names. We also found that the British company Unilever directly extracts palm oil from 2 mills that we know of from its own documentation.
Shame!
And maybe the next, maybe for the next protest we can go down to the River Thames and stand outside the Unilever headquarters and talk exactly about what the profits that they're extracting from West Papua. We know about the Grasberg mine, the biggest gold mine in the world, the second biggest copper mine in the world. Rio Tinto over in that corner was, up until fairly recently, up until 2018, was a joint owner of and jointly entitled to the profits from Grasberg. Nobody knows, because it's secret, how much money they made, though we do know that they sold their stake for 3.8 billion. 3.8 billion pounds of value directly from Grasberg, located in those headquarters, squirreled away in the accounts in this company over here, Rio Tinto. We also detail, although Freeport, the main owner of along with the Indonesian government of Grasberg now is an American company, we detail the British companies that are major investors in Freeport McMoran, including HSBC, Legal & General, Barclays Bank, Aberdeen, and the so-called ethical investment specialist Rathbones. All companies that we should be making a noise about why they think it's acceptable to extract profits from the misery that's caused by the Grasberg mine. 300, I'm sure we'll hear more about this in a moment, 300,000 tons of toxic tailings being dumped into the Ashqua River and the complex system of estuaries around it, that's killed the capacity for life and killed the capacity for people to be able to make a living and to live their lives, and has led to the poisoning of people and of the animal life and the plant life in the region. But I want to say something before I go just about BP. BP has 3,200 hectares of land in its Tangguh LNG, liquid natural gas processing facility in West Papua. It's in the middle of one of the world's most continuous mangrove forests, which is being destroyed. Ancient fishing grounds being destroyed. And we know BP has continually faced allegations of aligning with Indonesian authorities in the brutal treatment of local people, including and the repression of the Papuan population. And at least 10 villages have been, people in 10 villages have been forced out of their villages because of BP's presence. Our report again looks at how much value, how much profit is being extracted from that facility, from how much profit BP is making from West Papua. We don't know the profit, but we know that 5.89 billion on average, 5.89 billion on average every year revenue, that's pounds, is being extracted from Tangguh Bay. And after processing all of that gas, huge impact on in terms of that you can measure in terms of global warming. We estimate in the report will produce over 1.5 million tons of carbon if all of the reserves are exploited. 1.5 million tons of carbon. That's reason enough. That's reason enough for us all to be demanding the British government that stops. We know we're not going to get very far demanding BP stops because of that 5.89 billion average revenue, but we have to be demanding that stops, because 1.5 billion tons of carbon that will be produced in the lifetime of the field is the equivalent of everything all European Union countries have reduced between 2015 and 2030. So it basically wipes out the European reductions in the European carbon budget. And of course we're here to stand in solidarity with the Papuan people. We're here to stand in solidarity against the brutality, against the mutilations, against the atrocities, against the torture, against the disappearances, against the extrajudicial killings, which seem to be intensifying at the moment. And BP's presence, of course, legitimises that. But we're also here because this concerns, at a human level, we need to show solidarity with the Papuan people.
Yes.
But also, we need to be thinking about how we protect our planet, how we make sure the planet is sustainable. And it's quite simply not sustainable when companies like BP are in Papua exploiting the resources in the way they are. So I think I'll leave you. It's fantastic to see such a big turnout, and I'm hoping we do a bit of a tour around all the companies we did. Let's see how far we get. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many of you guys have read the report, but it names a lot more companies than just BP. Yeah, and so much. Next one we have are Southeast Asia Pacific solidarity with West Papua struggles, and similar comrades, other countries. So yeah, if you want to help on the finance,
Oh, good to see you.
I miss everyone.
I was like a couple minutes later due to
oh wow, okay. Hello, comrades. Hello.
Yes.
We, the militant Filipino youth, stand in solidarity with the struggle of West Papua.
Yes. Woo! Woo!
Just as the rural communities and indigenous peoples of the Philippines are bombed and displaced, so are the indigenous people of West Papua.
Yeah.
We are both victims of US-backed military violence as the US imperialism intends to strengthen its foothold in the Asia Pacific. We are both victims of imperialist plunder, Most recently, with British mining in the Web of the Sky of Philippines and British gas exploration in West Papua. Shame!
Shame!
Our countries are sacrificed for the so-called development of imperialist countries, while we are left with poverty, pollution, and environmental destruction. Our struggle is the same struggle against colonialism and imperialism, for national liberation of our people, for freedom from imperialism. All that is all three. The victory of one struggle is a victory for all struggles. We are tired.
Yes.
We are fucking tired of US-backed military occupations. We are tired of British plunder. Shame on you!
Shame on you! Shame! What a shame!
We struggle together and we fucking win together.
Yes!
Repeat after me. US out of Asia Pacific.
US out of Asia Pacific!
British mining out of the Philippines.
British mining out of the Philippines!
British gas out of West Papua.
British gas out of West Papua!
Down with imperialism.
I got the same!
Thank you so much, Selamat.
Yes! Selamat! Selamat! Powerful, powerful. Thank you. Coba yang sini, coba yang sini. Pengen sini. Free West Papua! Free West Papua! Free West Papua! Woo!
We're here today to be a bit annoyed because we have identified who is standing in the way of international solidarity. We have identified
Yes.
who is the enemy, who is the people that are destroying our planet, who is the people that are getting in the way of the flourishment and the desire of our children and our children's children to live a meaningful life. We stand here in Britain, in the imperial core, in a nation that has spent its entire history from the beginning of time exploiting the entire world. And we're here today because we know that by applying pressure right here in the belly of the beast, that we're able to sorry, I'm very caffeinated.
Woo! Woo! There you go.
We're standing here in the belly of the beast and we know that we're able to apply pressure here because our comrades on the other side of the world in West Papua need us to do that. Solidarity is something that you can hold. Solidarity is something that you can do. Solidarity isn't something that just means sharing things on Instagram. It doesn't mean just hoping that certain people do the right thing come election time. No, solidarity means that we all come here and stand together and we know not that we're hoping for something to change, but we're confident that things are going to change. So we're confident that people are going to get out on the streets. So we're all going to come out on when we rather be doing something else, but we make the sacrifices. We know that the things that we're fighting for are important. The international scene of people's struggle, the ILPS, which is the organization here, we're invited to speak today, and this is the first time I'm involved in any kind of decision like that. So last week I had the opportunity to visit the Philippines and be involved in the campaign to defend the voting of that. And the comrades are not just anti they immediately, like with basically second notice, organised demonstration outside of the Woggle Corporation offices in London, which is a corporation that is destroying and is planning to in the north of the Philippines the exact same extractivist, imperialist methods of accumulating profit as is happening in West Papua. So the reason that I'm standing here is not because I know anything about West Papua, as is possibly a little bit evident, but the fact that I'm a comrade of anyone who's in struggle. Because I'm here because, as a person who's been involved in political agitation my entire life, that when called upon by my organisation that I'm told that this is something that matters, this is something that's important, that this is now the time for us to make a commitment to learn more about the struggle of West Papua and to step up and make all of our people feel matter. There's a lot of people in London that recently have been marching for Palestine. There's a lot of people in this country that are mostly conscious about anti-imperialist struggles. But the word now must be to agitate amongst these people and let them know that the people of West Papua need.
They've been like getting benefit for old people. They got nothing. This is that.
So we're here because we know that
benefit
between
the
people who've been marching for Palestine for a couple months years.
still
So
suffering.
we know that there are people out there that are willing to step up and fight for this when it
That's
counts.
so
So that's why I'm bringing all this
so many injustices
to
and
for you and demonstrate why we're burning desire to
Number
have
one
for
is
you.
the
So
gold
thank you
mine.
for bringing
What's
this.
happening in our country is the third largest gold mine in the world. Still there. MVP is everything. We have everything in there. Just like
International solidarity! International solidarity! Free West Papua! 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 Merdeka! Merdeka! Merdeka!
Which are designed not only to control and dominate upwards, but they also, very importantly, as David set out earlier, serve to open up and secure space for extractive capital, and that's really a function of the violent military occupation there. So my own work has traced how successive militarized colonial forces have opened up firstly a mining frontier, as you heard, most notably in the form of the Grasberg gold and copper mine, an operation which is of staggering scale, and which causes a huge amount of contamination, geophysical destabilization of the landscape, and then more recently, rapid expansion of a plantation frontier, which is equally devastating to Papuan socio-ecologies, again having not only those localized effects of contamination and
stand behind
poisoning
that.
the landscape, but also the broader planetary effects. And I find all of this to be very much facilitated by the shifting discourses and structures of racism against Papuans themselves as people, which have been reproduced across the Dutch and colonial and Indonesian colonial eras. And that these forms of racism, structures of racism really work in the service of extractive international capital today. Mic check!
Mic check! Mic check!
We don't talk to the police!
We want to the police!
We do not talk to the police!
We don't want to the police!
We keep each other safe!
Yes!
We keep each other safe!
We keep each other safe! That's it! Woo!
So
the wishes of the Papuan people who want their freedom, they want their independence. So we've had successive racial colonial projects establishing a particular structural position for West Papua in the world capitalist system. So under Indonesian colonialism today, West Papua is locked into a position at the frontier of the periphery. It's a colony of a post-colony, and it's a very important material centre of global extraction and basically social and ecological devastation. And I think it's always important to note that the Indonesian extension of state sovereignty over West Papua was only made possible because of the European colonial projects and by importing European narratives of Papuan racial inferiority into the contemporary Indonesian project. And Indonesian colonial occupation really serves the interests of foreign capital today. This is really well set out in Samira and David's report. And of course, we're here today because so much of this extracted value is washed through the corporate channels and financial routes of the UK through British companies and British capital and ends up, right here in the hands of BP. Shame!
Shame! Shame!
And for our purposes today, so these are the structures into which BP inserts itself and which make possible its extractive operations. So BP's profits from the Tangguh LNG facility in Bintuni Bay are possible only because Indonesia's violent military occupation acts as its guarantor. So I want to reinforce that extraction under militarized colonial conditions in West Papua means that the landscape itself is geophysically destabilized. Toxic tailings waste in huge proportions from mines are stacking up in huge proportions. Chemical inputs and contamination increases through the plantation system, and the pace of rainforest and biodiversity also is speeding up. So you have this racialized frontier of extraction in West Papua. It is by definition a site of concentrated social and ecological destruction. It's important to note that West Papuans themselves have always stood up and resisted, by any means necessary, this sacrificial reality. And they do this through protesting locally, through standing up to the Indonesians, through every means they can. But their structural position in the world system means that they can't do this alone. So Papua needs much more forceful international solidarity from us, especially in precisely where we are now, in the financial centres of the global north, where the profits from Papuan extraction end up. So we really need to tackle BP and other corporate abusers head on. And this is why actions like this are so important, and we need more actions like this and more direct action. So that's it from me, but just to end by saying Papua Merdeka!
Papua Merdeka!
Papua Merdeka!
Papua Merdeka!
David, we need you to speak.
Undermining that well?
Yeah.
Free West Papua! Free West Papua! Yay! Woo!
Free West Papua!
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 Yeah! Free West Papua!
Thank you to the organisers of this really important protest. Thank you to the researchers and writers of this really invaluable report. Thank you to everyone, all of you, all the organisations that are here supporting this today, to ensure that this so-called silent genocide isn't allowed to continue in silence anymore. We're here to amplify the ferocious and focused cries for freedom of the West Papuan people here in the belly of the beast that would rather ignore their humanity and inherent right to self-determination.
My name's Daniel and I'm a member of the London Mining Network, and we're a network of over 20 different organisations that work in solidarity with communities affected by British mining companies around the world. We campaign for human rights, indigenous self-determination and the ecological integrity of our planet. I'm also a teacher. I'm an International Solidarity Officer for the National Education Union, and I'm going to share, when I finish, a few of the quotes from my students when I've taught about West Papua in the classroom. I want to build on a few points that David mentioned, but he mentioned the most important ones that I wanted to share today about why this is such an important strategic location for us to be stood today, as BP's presence has not only redrawn the physical landscape of West Papua, but has disrupted the equilibrium of human life and marine ecosystems that's been maintained by the indigenous people for millennia. The forced relocation of 10 villages, people being severed from their ancestral fishing grounds. And BP isn't satisfied with what it has. It is expanding its operations in West Papua. It's investing $7 billion to unlock another 3 trillion cubic feet of gas and to increase its percentage of energy that it supplies to the Indonesian settler colonial state from 20% up to 35%. So BP is incredibly integral to how Indonesia functions as a settler colony on West Papuan land.
Shame!
And this is just, as we all know, one item to add to the long list of BP's corporate criminality, of its ecocidal extraction, of its genocidal profiteering. From the BTC pipeline that's fueling the Zionist genocide against Palestinian people, to being the biggest player under Sisi's military dictatorship in Egypt, to its operations in over 70 different countries that's leaving a trail of habitat destruction, biodiversity loss, evictions of indigenous people and communities, all whilst making billions of pounds worth of profit. So the report outlines really effectively that London's extractive connections to West Papua go far beyond BP, and in fact it refers to this as a racialised frontier of extraction. We've mentioned the Grasberg mine already, and Rio Tinto, the mining giant that's based on this same square, and how it made billions of dollars worth of profit whilst completely destroying and polluting the soils and the rivers of West Papua. But even though Rio Tinto has now sold its share in the mine, there are many financial interests in the Grasberg mine that still come back to
Free West Papua!
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 So regardless of who owns the mine, London is the centre, the global epicentre of the mining industry. And that is through the London Bullion Market Association, the most important trade association of gold, where Grasberg's gold will circulate through. It's through the London Metal Exchange, which is a central hub for global copper trading, and Freeport McMoran has multiple copper brands listed or registered with the London Metals Exchange, which includes 2 at least that we can trace to Grasberg. And under UK criminal law, not that it matters for much, the London Metals Exchange is obligated to report any knowledge or suspicion of laundering the proceeds of environmental crime that's happening on its exchange, and to immediately identify and halt the trade of these metals. So London is complicit in allowing the bloody profits and metals from West Papua to circulate through its exchanges. That was one of the reasons why London Mining Network joined the Global Legal Action Network to issue a complaint to the London Metals Exchange and the Financial Conduct Authority for allowing this dirty copper, this blood-soaked profits to circulate through its exchanges. Grasberg is an archetype of what we at the London Mining Network, through our solidarity with affected communities around the world, call martial mining. And it's this cycle where extractivism is always inherently a militarised process. Because mining companies, or let me start off by saying indigenous people, whether it's in West Papua, whether it's in Colombia, in South Africa, in the Congo, do not allow companies to come in, evict them from their lands, pollute their rivers, destroy their soils, without putting up resistance. We support unconditionally the right of colonised and occupied people to resist their occupiers. Companies therefore rely on the arms trade, on the military, on surveillance technologies, on the strategies of war and counterinsurgency to dispossess and affect communities. to police and restrict their access to their own territory, to repress their resistance to ecocide and habitat destruction. And Freeport-McMoran itself has made direct payments of tens of millions of dollars to the Indonesian military and police for security and protection. They've given six-figure sums to individual commanders in the Indonesian military. They've spent $35 million on military infrastructure, including a barracks, headquarters and roads. This is the militarism that allows extractivism to take place. But there's the symbiotic relationship here, where militarism is always already an extractive process. Without the extraction of a periodic table of natural resources, there would be no nuclear weapons, no F-35 fighter jets, no bullets, no bombs, no missiles or assault rifles that are used around the world to oppress and repress resisting and occupied peoples, including in West Papua. And I think another really important element of the report that I want to highlight is the role of the British arms trade in upholding the militarised occupation of West Papua. Britain's foremost weapons manufacturer, BAE Systems, which is an integral component of the F-35 supply chain, that is integral component or part of the arsenal of genocide in Gaza and Palestine as we speak. BAE Systems has a long-standing history of exporting equipment and services to Indonesia to commit human rights abuses and colonial war crimes, all the way back to the genocide in Timor-Leste. UK-Indonesia partnership, or the partnership between the UK and Indonesian government, outlines plans for joint military training, including jungle warfare exercises between the British and Indonesian armies. And in fact, the British Army and Royal Navy have provided at least 83 training courses, as this report details, in defence to the Indonesian military. And many of these are being used directly to fight the insurgency in West Papua. The British Army and Special Forces also contributes to the Jakarta Centre for Law Enforcement Cooperation. And this is where the training happens for one of the main brigades, that is a Special Forces unit deployed in West Papua and is trained by an institution again funded by the British state. So these are not strange coincidences or anomalies. The extraction of resources, whether it be palm oil, gold, copper, nickel or gas from West Papua, the accumulation of profit and capital in the context of colonial occupation, this would be impossible without the means of warfare and suppression that's supplied by the military, the police and the arms trade. So British capital is profiting from the imperialist exploitation from Indonesian settler colonial occupation of West Papua, and therefore it has a clear interest in securing the conditions for this through policing, through militarisation, through extreme as well as slow violence. And in a similar and entangled way, British capital profits from Zionist settler colonial occupation of Palestine and the imperialist exploitation of the wider region that the outpost advances. So BP lubricates and profits from both of these crimes against people and planet. Shame on BP!
Shame!
Shame on BP!
Shame on BP!
Free West Papua!
Free West Papua!
I want to finish on a positive note, which is how I teach about West Papua in the classroom to young people. And it's West Papua as a climate justice struggle, it's the importance of the rainforest to all of our lives, but it's also the insights that I've learned from Benny Wender and his daughter, and every time I've listened to West Papua speaking about the significance of the rainforest to them, not just as a, or certainly not as a resource to extract and exploit in the same way that BP would see it, but as a supermarket, as a shelter, as a medicine cabinet that provides for the material subsistence of the people. And at the end of the lesson where I teach about West Papua and the palm oil deforestation that's currently ongoing, we finish with an opinion scale in line, which is, should we be boycotting Indonesian palm oil products? Okay? And I want to share with you some of the answers that 14-year-olds in Newham have given us. Yes. No more palm oil products from occupied land. Yes. There are way more products we could buy from and our consumer choices have an impact. Yes. Until their desires of being free, I won't buy Kit Kats or Oreos from Indonesia. The more people who do it, the easier it gets. Yes. Because if we were to keep buying them, we're not helping the people in West Papua. Yes. Because it's not fair on the people in West Papua. They are suffering and we can help stop it. Yes. I think we should boycott Indonesian palm oil because it has affected West Papuan people for too long and change must be made. The 14-year-old in Newham understand what we need to do. This has been going on for too long. Change must be made. Free West Papua!
Free West Papua!
Free West Papua!
Free West Papua!
Papua Merdeka!
Papua Merdeka!
Thank you very much.
Hello? When I say free, free, you say West Papua! Free, free!
West Papua!
West Papua!
Free, free!
West Papua!
Free, free!
West Papua!
Okay, one more. The people united!
Will never be defeated!
The people united!
Will never be defeated!
Hi everybody, I'm Raya from Energy Embargo for Palestine.
Woo!
We are an anti-imperialist group organizing for an energy embargo from below for Palestine. I wanted to start with that chant because it really captures why we as Energy Embargo for Palestine are here speaking today in solidarity with the Boycott for West Papua campaign. Because from the mountains of West Papua to the gas fields off the coast of Gaza, our struggles are common. The struggle against imperialism and the struggle against BP. BP's expansion of the Tangguh gas field in West Papua, one of the largest gas fields in the world, is a glaring example of how BP has abandoned its hollow renewable energy commitments and instead has chosen to double down on oil and gas production. Shame!
Shame!
From its orchestration with Western states from its collaboration with Western states to orchestrate a coup in Iran in order to secure its oil production, to fueling apartheid in South Africa, to destroying the ocean with the Deepwater Horizon disaster and its continued destruction of land and the oppression of people in West Papua, killing people and planet in the pursuit of profit is actually business as usual for BP.
Shame!
BP is directly implicated in the genocide against the West Papuan people through its collusion with Indonesian security forces to commit human rights abuses against the local and indigenous population. The expansion of the Tangguh project, which will now supply Indonesia with 1/3 of its natural gas, has come at the cost of displacing and murdering local communities, restricting their access to clean water, and most criminally, violently separating an indigenous people from their land. Participating in one genocide isn't enough for BP. In Palestine, as the Zionist entity continues its genocide of Gaza with impunity, BP operates a pipeline that supplies 30% of the Zionist entity's oil.
Shame!
And this oil is refined to military-grade jet fuel used to bomb Palestinians.
Shame!
BP's operations worldwide are made possible only by treating our earth and our people as disposable. Entire communities and livelihoods are erased in BP's path for endless extraction and endless greed. Their fossil fuel empire that they are so determined to build is built on environmental annihilation, political destabilization, and tyranny against local resistance. Everywhere BP goes, they steal the land, contaminate the water, and poison the air. We know a better world is possible. A world free from the exploitation of multinational corporations seeking profit upon profit. A world with freedom and dignity for all, and a world of bread and roses. This world is possible. And not only is it possible, it is right on the horizon. For West Papua, for the markets of Palestine, for everyone around the world who has resisted BP's criminal operations and its imperialist counterparts, we must unite our struggles and get organized. We must resist BP because resisting BP means resisting the cult of imperialism that puts extraction over life, occupation over profit, and profit over a livable future. The people united!
United!
The people united!
We never defeated!
Free, free!
West Papua!
Free, free!
West Papua!
Free, free!
West Papua!
Free, free!
Palestine! Palestine!
Woo!
this thing working?
Yes. Here we go.
My name's Siaran Ulang. I'm one of the directors of the Free West Papua Campaign UK.
Woo!
I'd like to read out for you a statement which has just arrived from Benny Wender, the interim president of Free West Papua, and he would like to address the meeting as follows. He says, thank you to everyone for coming here, and to Professor David White and Samira Saunders for their report. BP is directly complicit in genocide in West Papua. By financing the Indonesian government, they are financing BP, which stands for British Petroleum, but for us, it stands for Blood of Papua. For over 15 years, BP has operated in the middle of occupied land. Bintuni Bay has gone from rainforest to a militarized zone. Settlers get all the jobs. Local people can't catch fish. The local people are sick. BP is working with Indonesian security forces to crush the people's spirit and their resistance. The current situation in West Papua is getting worse and worse. Every day we receive news of a massacre, a killing, torture, or racist incident. On October the 15th, Indonesia massacred 15 West Papuans in Intan Jaya. Soldiers went from house to house, killing innocent people while they slept. They then claimed that the people they killed were TPNPB fighters, a disgusting lie that was contradicted by all reports from on the ground. The same week, Indonesian military bombed the Star Mountains with missiles, drones and fighter jets. They destroyed villages and killed 4 TPNPB members. This is not an equal fight. It is David versus Goliath. The TPNPB are guarding their ancestral land with only bows and arrows and a few guns taken from raids. Then we have seen riots after Indonesian settlers racially abused students in Yalimo. Children shot dead before Indonesian Independence Day. A teenager murdered for wearing the Morning Star flag on his clothes. And up to 14 civilians massacred in Intan Jaya in May. This is the occupation that BP is working with and enabling. At the same time, the destruction of our forest is increasing. Indonesia is currently destroying Merauke for the biggest plantation ever created, the size of Wales. In Intan Jaya, they are building the Wabu Block gold mine, the size of Jakarta. BP expanded the gas fields last year. This is happening all across West Papua. Indonesia is destroying the world's 3rd largest rainforest faster and with more violence than ever before. You cannot fight climate change without fighting for a free West Papua. Thank you all for coming. Papua Merdeka.
Papua Merdeka, yes! Woo! Merdeka. Merdeka! Woo! Free West Papua! 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 Free Sudan! Free Sudan! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
Free West Papua!
Free West Papua!
Free West Papua!
Free West Papua!
for being here. Papua
Merdeka! Merdeka!
Is exactly why that's under threat. And Benny Wenda came to speak at that conference, and we were very struck when he made the point. He says, when I'm in London and I look up at the buildings, I see mountains. I see the mountains of West Papua. When I'm in London and I look at the streets, I see the rivers.
Yes!
That wasn't just Benny being poetic.
Can I say this one last thing?
But he was making a very powerful political point.
Can you hold this on?
The profits that are extracted from West Papua are in London. And they're in London, and they're siphoned into London in very hidden ways. And ways in which we then have a commitment to try and expose precisely.
I'm West Papuan, and indigenous people of West Papua. And
I do want to say,
on behalf of my
before I
people
get into
from West
just
Papua,
naming
I would
some
like
names,
to thank you so
we
much.
also recognise that the form of repression in West Papua is industrial, and I think that's very important. The form of repression arises directly from the
Free West Papua!
capitalist development that's going on in West Papua.
Free West
We have to
Papua!
name that form of repression. Where people are being thrown off their land for corporate development, or where food sources and water sources being
Thank you very much from my sister Shaw for organizing.
And I think there are people here that understand the form of racism experienced by the Papuan people is a form of industrial racism, and it's directly related to the form of
From
industrial
British government in Indonesia and the USA. For gold mining company and everything. And I would like to thank you.
Very final
Everything
racialization is necessary
for showing up today.
also to recognize the extreme violence.
Yes.
Wow.
And name some names that are in the report. The other thing I want to say is I've got a lot of copies of the report with me that I hope people here will ask me for as many as we can give away, so we can distribute the way. We also want the report because we want things like this to happen. We don't just want to name names, we want to name names in a way that we can be present at the locations where that value, that profit is being extracted directly out of West Papua, and of course,
So the LNG and
one of the most important. We identified, I'm going to talk about agriculture very
happening in Bintuni,
major British investors
in West Papua.
West Papuan palm oil plantations, including Prudential, HSBC, Legal and General, and Aberdeen, the big investment company names. We also found that the British company Unilever directly extracts palm oil from 2 mills that we know of. Maybe the next, maybe for the next protest we can go down to the River Thames and stand outside the Unilever headquarters and talk exactly about what the profits that they're extracting from West Papua. We know about the Grasberg mine, the biggest gold mine in the world, the second biggest copper mine in the world. Rio Tinto over in that corner was, up until fairly recently, up until 2018, was a joint owner of and jointly entitled to the profits from Grasberg. Nobody knows because it's secret how much money they made, but we do know that they sold their stake for 3.8 million.
Yeah, if we all want to gather into the middle, I think Ambo did mention,
squirreled away in the accounts in this company over here, Rio Tinto. The main owner of, along with the Indonesian government, now is an American company. We detail the British companies that are major investors in Freeport McMoran, including HSBC, Legal and General, Barclays Bank, Aberdeen, and the so-called ethical investment specialist.
Thank you.
All companies that we should be making a noise about why they think it's acceptable to extract profits from the misery that's caused